Next up, we have the 1988 movie The Brain. It's a very interesting movie. There's a sort of self-help TV personality who is trying to take control of his audience with the help of an alien organism shaped like a brain, with massive telekinetic powers, trying to take over the audience to... I'm not even sure what the point of it was, to be honest, but just trying to take over the audience, and those who don't receive the brainwaves properly, for whatever reason, tend to have psychedelic and hallucinogenic breakdowns. There's some really strange things in this movie. This one high school student is sent to this clinic, and through the course of his experience, he finds out about the existence of this alien organism, and then tries to get people in his town to wake up to the growing power. But really, he can only find one person who believes him. And the movie from that point on is basically these two teens trying to fight against the whole town. Because by this point, the whole town is more or less under the influence of the brain. And very invasion of the body snatchers like, actually. That's the basic premise of this movie. Certainly an often entertaining movie. It's really all over the place. There's slasher aspects to the movie in which some of these individuals sort of go crazy and kill people they've known all their lives. There's some really trippy psychedelic parts. The opening of the movie, when I saw the opening of the movie, I was just amazed because it was so out of the world. I don't know, the movie can be quite boring at times, especially once you get past, I don't know, like maybe the 30-minute mark, when it's just the two kids hiding in the school for 25 minutes. And I'm not overly satisfied with much of the conclusion. But I would say on the surface it's a very entertaining movie. It's just not a particularly great movie.
Yeah, I thought for me it was a fairly underwhelming experience for me. The story's got some okay potential there. The brain itself, while when it is on screen, it's one of those goofy type of creatures that you kind of either laugh at, yes, or you just find amusing because of how silly it looks. But in the grand scheme of things, when you ever see it on the screen and it's killing someone, it's really just kind of flapping its mouth while making some sort of growling, chewing noise. And so the brain itself didn't do as much for me as it probably could have. As you were saying, some of the characters, or at least at times in the movie, the characters are kind of boring. I think, is it David Gale who plays the scientist or the doctor?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
He, even though his character's somewhat interesting, it feels like a much cheaper version of a similar character that he played in Reanimator, which I believe was also another character who was kind of fascinated with the brain.
I would say, not to... the one thing I wish... Well, there's a lot of things I wish about this movie. I wish we got more backstory on that guy. Because he's just this TV personality, spiritual guy, but we don't really know much about him. And we never really find out much about him. And that's something the movie might have been, could have done to give us just a little more, meat.
And as you were saying earlier, the conclusion to the movie, I think that could have been a lot better. The way they defeat the brain, the special effects on it just, I don't know, it just didn't seem... I don't want to use the term realistic in a movie like this, but kind of sparks and electrocutes or explodes. It's kind of weird. It gets destroyed in a couple of different types of ways all at the same time. I don't know how to explain that.
Out of interest, have you seen this movie before?
I did try and watch it once, actually. I think a couple of months ago, and I only got a few minutes in. It was actually because I was quite tired at the time, so I kind of fell asleep straight away. Not so much anything to do with the movie.
Because I'll be honest, I would say the opening of the movie is probably one of my favorite parts.
Yeah, it definitely has a decent opening. And the movie does have its moments, especially when either the brain's on the screen
or that woman is undressing on the TV, but yeah.
Or some of those scenes, or, well, one in particular where the lady had the chainsaw.
There was a pretty decent decapitation. Well, it wasn't amazing, but there was a decapitation in the movie I thought was, pretty decent. Mainly because I'm a slasher guy, so during the time they moved more toward that area, I was a little happier.
Yeah. Well, I think actually there's 2 decapitations.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised.
There was the one with the axe, and then what does the other guy just punches his head off? Or, I can't remember, but 2 people get their heads knocked off.
No, I'll say as bad as the brain log, I was okay with most of the special effects. They weren't great, but for a somewhat lower budget movie from the late '80s, I thought they did somewhat okay for themselves.
Yeah, I'm definitely not complaining too much about the actual effects. I just think I don't know. I just expected it to look a little different when they defeat the brain.
Yeah, I just sort of wondered what did you expect? Going into this one.
Probably something a little more gooey, gory. But yeah, like, and another thing, that there are certain times during the movie where I don't know if it feels like they've just chopped or edited a scene, like they've filmed one part and then another part later and then added in. Like, that one scene where the woman goes outside to ask her husband to come in and watch the show.
Yeah.
When he says no, it doesn't sound like that was recorded at the same time as her asking him the question. So it just feels a bit odd there. And going back earlier at the start of the movie, where they're having the meeting with that boy and his parents, recommending they go see this doctor guy, there is a part where they all stand up and he puts the glue on the chair, and then they all just sit back down. It's kind of like, why did everyone stand up in the first place? It just seemed like they did that just so they could actually have that scene of putting glue on the chair, but it didn't really make any sense for them to stand and then just sit back down 10 seconds later.
Yeah, there were some awkward parts of the movie. Well, I suspect some might argue a lot of the movie was awkward. Yeah, you can definitely tell there's some type of story going on behind the scenes.
The one woman who appears naked in multiple parts of the movie, as I was watching the movie, and my wife was kind of in and out watching the movie along with me, the second time she pops up towards the end, naked again, she mentioned that she had some sort of 5 o'clock shadow mustache, and as soon as she said that, I couldn't stop thinking about that any time she was talking, so that didn't really help either. Usually I want to, if a naked chick's on the screen, that's a good thing, but now saying, hey, she had a mustache, what? Not much of one.
I can imagine that would sort of ruin the vibe for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, when it comes to this movie, this was on a list of movies I've wanted to see for quite some time, and off the top of my head, I don't honestly remember why I put it on that list. I suspect probably because it was an 80s horror movie I haven't seen yet, and the 80s is one of my favorite decades of the genre. No, and when I finally watched it, it's an okay movie. It's not terrible. It's certainly entertaining, and while it can be slow at points, I think the story is interesting and it can somewhat keep you engaged. As bad as some of the more, I enjoyed most of the performances, and that there was one character in the movie who had a very threatening feel to him, a big beard mustache type guy, and I did like that guy. Overall, I'll say the movie's entertaining, and while it's not necessarily a great movie, I would still rate it just slightly above average, so I'd probably give it a 7.5.
Yeah, for me it was a fairly underwhelming experience overall. Characters not too entertaining. Special effects were okay, but as I was saying, I did expect maybe a more gory or gooey type experience with a brain type creature that we had, and I thought they could have done a lot more with the actual. I don't know if you want to call it a creature, but I guess that's what I'm going to call it. I thought they could have done more with that. It is, at times, entertaining in that goofy kind of cheesy, low-budget way, but in the grand scheme of things, I thought it could have been a lot better, and I was expecting a little more out of it than what I got out of it, so I give it not such a great score of 4 out of 10.
Yeah, that's a much lower score than I anticipated.
Yeah. Well, I was considering a 5, but then I go back and think about other movies that I've given a 5, and did I enjoy it on the same level as those? And I think no.
Or maybe in 15 years when you revisit it, it'll come up to a 6.
Yeah, well, I mean, you never know. Maybe at some point I'll watch it again and I have a better time with it the next time.